Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Transmigrated as Minato Namikaze. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 311, The Defenses Are Being Assembled. Third-person POV. Uzushiogakure, Year 42. The next day, Minato was received by an entire school of the Fish Clan on one of the island's coasts, while he began mapping the sea with them using his scroll. It was a strange sight as he stood facing the sea with a group of horned fish with their heads out of the water, remembering his time training with Guren on the southern coast in recent years. And now he was dealing with the entire clan. Minato was showing a way to place them at each of the strategic points, both in the east of the island and in the northern and southern seas, since none of the villages would invade through the land of fire and they would come from these three places. Thus, all the fish obeyed Minato's strategy, spreading across the sea in pairs, each carrying his Raijin seal, one that was not destroyed by the water as the fish advanced in different directions, with even some staying in the west of the island to check any approach of Uzushiogakure by Konoha. Makoto managed to use her eternal Mangekyo Sharingan and put the captured kraken under her control, binding it and placing it in the sea as another force that would aid them, after having made an exclusive summoning contract with the creature. Kushina once again set her clones to work on the new barrier layers of the island, while Tsuna and Hanabi continued working with the Uzumaki group on elemental jutsus. The clan itself was also entirely in motion. Thousands of explosive tags were made every hour, with most of the Uzumaki clan working on them. Even before dawn, the entire clan was already in motion, preparing for what was to come. Despite the fear, people maintained determination as they organized their defenses. Their survival depended on it. Minato took Makoto and Kushina once again to Mount Mayaboku to begin training. Kushina was increasingly mastering her complete transformation into the fox, now without the disturbances that previously affected her clones. She began working on making Rasengan in her giant form, before working on Baijidama. Makoto was gradually improving and adapting to the use of her new eyes. Although she had not yet used the full power of the Susanoo, she was adapting little by little. Since she also needed to maintain control as her chakra increased spontaneously, she had to get used to the new amount of chakra, which was approaching the level of a Biju. Minato did not remain idle either. He began training some of his limits, especially the Hakis. He had not yet perfectly mastered the three types, much less the Conqueror's Haki, and therefore dedicated his time to his own training at Mount Mayaboku, trying to expand his mastery over the three more and more. He began with the Conqueror's Haki itself, wanting to increase its range. This Haki was extremely dangerous in the ninja world, capable of changing the course of entire wars. For example, if the Raikage could be taken down by 10,000 stone ninjas, with the Haki in Minato in the same situation, he could simply shake half of them by releasing his aura, if not all of them, with the other half losing the confidence to move forward against him. Minato could, upon arriving on the battlefield with a spirit far more powerful than the others and releasing his aura, cause thousands of enemies to fall at his feet. With a single strategic move, he could unbalance an entire war. However, he did not believe he could use this in the conflict against the Uzumaki clan. Perhaps in the future, in a third or fourth ninja war, especially in the latter, when he could save the vast majority of people. After all, after what happened in the original work, the number of dead was incalculable. Minato believed that most of the ninjas who fought there died, since they were facing Obito, 100,000 Zetsus, Kabuto's Edo Tensei reanimations, and an uncontrolled Edo Madara, which caused large-scale destruction. However, his training with the Conqueror's Haki was soon set aside. For now, he would focus more on his armament Hakis, while still trying to fully master this Haki, in which he had some difficulty. He still could not maintain the armament as he wanted or cover his entire body when needed. He also needed to master the internal explosion, aiming to reach the advanced form of the Haki. The observation Haki would also need training, even though it was the one Minato had the most control over. He would have to unleash his vision of the future and improve his detection of feelings, which was already quite strong, but still needed polishing to reach the highest level, before attempting the final stage. The vision of the future would give him an advantage no one else could have. Thus, 2 days passed and the entire Uzumaki clan was in full force, training and preparing their defenses. The sentinels Minato had provided also patrolled the sea, circling the maritime area in search of any large number of ships or advancing ninjas. It was easy to monitor thanks to Minato, who had placed small seals on each fish, allowing them to manipulate enough chakra to send messages to him as a signal. Thus, they could quickly inform him of any suspicious movement. Minato could teleport to them to receive reports or bring one of them to where he was and then send the fish back. This system worked in pairs, precisely to ensure that the warning was safely delivered, and Minato would place the fish back in the same location he had taken it from, teleporting it next to its partner in the pair. On the 3rd day since Minato had seen Jiraiya in the Mayaboko clan, he was summoned by the elder. He left his 2 girls' training and proceeded to the main hall of the Toad clan, accompanied by Fukasaku. As he passed by Shima, she invited him to a meal as always, but he refused. "Hello," Minato greeted Gamahiro, while the giant toad nodded upon seeing him approach. He usually used Gamabunta more for training, but always kept in touch with Gamaken and Gamahiro, 2 of the 3 giant toads he used to summon. Upon entering the elder's cave, Minato saw the elder sitting in his chair, eyes closed. This was only the 2nd time he had come there. It was not necessary to be in his presence daily after he was granted permission to train in the lands of the toads. "Yes, elder, I brought Minato as you requested," said Fukasaku, while the elder lowered his head. "Who are you again?" he asked. Both Minato and Fukasaku frowned, already accustomed to the sage's eccentric ways. "Minato boy, Jiraiya boy's student, the one we believe to be the child of the prophecy," Fukasaku exclaimed, while the elder seemed to study Minato with his eyes still closed. "Ah, I remember you," he said in a tone of recognition. "Now that you're here, I also recall what I wanted to tell you." He paused. Minato said nothing, not knowing what to expect. "I dreamed of Konoha last night," said the elder. "Someone has been chosen as Hokage." "Really?" "I hope it's Tsukumo, he was the best in place of the last one." Minato said with satisfaction, thinking that Hiruzen was no longer the Hokage of Konoha. "Yes, I remember that name being spoken, the man with white hair." Most of the council agreed and a new government was formed. "None of the former elders are in the village's leadership anymore," said the elder. "That's good," Minato replied with satisfaction. Those greedy ones had lost power, all the wealth and influence they had accumulated over the years was cut off. No more missions that directly benefited them, no schemes to control the most powerful ninjas who could be a threat to their power. Now, the village would follow the right and natural path. Konoha had always been the place where the most powerful were born, and so it should continue. They usually said that geniuses were born all the time, but few survived. Minato disagreed with this view in certain scenarios. If a village truly nurtured its talents properly, all could flourish. However, almost all villages tried to control these prodigies. For this reason, some villages gained notoriety, with the exception of Kumo and Iwa, who were not as fortunate in producing so many powerful ninjas. Minato remembered that Sunagakure, for example, did not hand over its most powerful ninjas in exchange for peace, preferring to kill its own. Kiri, on the other hand, would simply be slaughtering all its ninjas with Kekkai Genkai throughout the country. The bloody mist had already begun, slaughtering children who had not even developed their great talents, when not everyone matures so early. Konoha, on the other hand, under the leadership of Hiruzen, had Danzo interrupting the development of many talents, using them as experiments or bringing them to obey orders without question. In any case, the conversation with the elder went on even longer before Minato returned to training. When he returned to the clan with the girls, before nightfall, Minato went to see Hanabi and Suna's training, while Kushina and Makoto stopped by Kushina's mother's house, where Hanabi's grandfather was also present, to have coffee. He saw Hanabi as she trained with a group of Uzumaki. She and all the others used bows, shooting arrows coated with wind chakra at distant targets. There were at least 100 Uzumaki training with her, all firing arrows with precision. Suna, on the other hand, was with an even larger group, reaching 300 or 400 Uzumaki in constant training in the middle of the sea, creating jutsus with seawater. The barriers had also been reinforced. 3 more layers were added after Kushina began working on them in recent days with 1,000 clones, while she poured limitless chakra into them. Uzumakis spread thousands of explosive tags hidden underwater around the island's barriers, camouflaged so as not to be detected, while others worked with chakra ink to form new seals throughout the entire day. Everyone was engaged in the defense of the clan. Even those who could not manipulate chakra kept themselves busy with chores, supporting in some way those who were on some duty in defense of the clan. Even Hanabi's grandfather advised the elders, with his experience as a Hyuga on the battlefield before Konoha even formed the village, and the Hyuga clan joined the idea of the Senju and Uchiha clans. Minato, satisfied, stopped at one of the towers in the middle of the clan. He observed everything around him, determined to protect the island at any cost. His eyes turned west, a little more in the direction of the Hidden Leaf Village, wondering how everyone was now and what decision they would make with the new Hokage. He knew that Tsukumo would be a great leader. He might be a little rusty after some time away from activity, but he would easily regain his former power. Minato was satisfied that, in some way, he had managed to prevent the suicide the man had committed when he had asked to be his student in Kenjutsu. Minato's eyes then turned east, as he felt a call from the fish. He vanished in the next instant and reappeared in the sea, the pressure of the water striking around him without harming him. He blinked, held his breath, already prepared to remain there for some time, knowing that he needed to answer the call. 2 fish appeared in front of him, each pointing a fin upward. As Minato observed, a group of scouts ran across the water toward the Uzumaki clan. He analyzed them for a moment. They were scouts, something quite common in recent days. However, thanks to the fish clan, Minato could intercept them kilometers away, beyond what his haki could provide. This allowed him to track them so that no one in the ranks of the enemy villages would know what was happening. The group of Kiri ninjas had been sent without fully understanding what was occurring with the Uzumaki clan. Their scouts had been disappearing in recent days without explanation, which made the operation dangerous, especially if they were about to start the conflict between the villages and the Uzumaki. This time, they sent a force strong enough to survive any jutsu the Uzumaki might use. However, Minato noticed something unexpected among them, none other than one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. Upon identifying the threat, Minato turned toward them as they advanced across the water's surface. His body gleamed and vanished in an instant. Then he shot like lightning toward the invaders, arriving above them in a fraction of a second. He emerged from the water with a smile. He would end the incursion in a single strike and take one of the swordsmen of the mist with him. Chapter 312, The Enemy is Coming. Third-person POV. Yuzushiogakure, Year 42. Several kilometers away, a fleet of ships began advancing across the surface of the sea. More and more vessels were displayed, forming a small fleet of more than 100 ships, heading in a certain direction. Beneath the sea, one could see the horned fish curiously observing the movement on the surface, while beginning to emit signals through the seal connected to Minato. One of the pair of fish disappeared in the next moment, leaving only the other staring at the underside of the ships advancing through the sea. Minato was sitting in the middle of the large meeting room. Present were the leader of the Uzumaki, Masaki, Mu, and other village elders, as well as Suna and Kushina beside Minato. As soon as Minato felt the call, he made a seal movement and, in the next moment, a fish appeared in front of him, with him catching it before it fell to the ground with his arms, as big as a large dog. "Lord Minato," said the fish, looking at him cautiously. "Tell me something, is there anything east?" Minato asked, already knowing the signal came from that direction. "Yes, Lord Minato. There are several ships coming from the sea to the east. They are advancing through the middle of the sea. We believe they are heading for you, here," it said. "All right, I'll send you back. I want you to count how many ships there are and if any more groups will appear in the sea." "I'll summon you in a few hours," Minato replied, while the fish nodded and disappeared in the next moment, being sent back to its partner. "It seems the information we gathered was correct," Minato said, facing the clan leader after everyone around him listened to the interaction between him and the fish. They had already been in the meeting for more than 2 hours, and it was almost late afternoon, receiving information not only from that fish but also from others. Minato had already summoned fish from the north when the first report came of ships appearing in that sea, probably sent by IWA in addition to those from Kumo. The meeting was urgently convened, explaining the situation while they began to debate the next steps. The enemy was making its move. An hour later, came the information that from the south there were also ships advancing north, ships from Suna. Even without the Kage, they were sending their forces. Now, Kiri was finally acting together with the others as well. It seems they coordinated the day to act, just as we found out from the hostage I captured. However, they will not launch an attack directly. First, they will organize, sending ninjas to talk to each other before the attack. Maybe send a group of scouts to see the terrain and the clan before the main force acts. Minato said. How much time do you think we have? Asked one of the elders. It's hard to say, they may act within the next few hours or even wait a day at most before the attack. Minato pondered. They had already been preparing since the day Minato had taken down the entire elite team of Kiri scouts and captured one of the mist swordsmen. Instead of killing him, he placed him under interrogation with the Uzumakis using Fuinjutsu. It could not be as effective as the Yamanaka clan's techniques, but it worked after some effort. With that, they obtained information about the day of the attack, which would be the following day, and even some of Kiri's formations. Obviously, the joint attack would be organized to be launched at the same time. Everyone wanted to take their share at the end of this fight. Will we be able to protect the clan? Some elders did not hide their concerns. Of course we will. Yuzushiobakure will not fall so easily. We have armed ourselves heavily in the past few days and we have powerful allies, Mu Uzumaki said firmly. Mu is right. Even though we had only a few days, isn't it obvious that our Uzumaki clan prepared well? We have 3 new layers of barriers around the island thanks to Lady Kushina, tens of thousands of explosive tags exhausting the whole clan to make them, and most of them are hidden in the water around the island, hundreds of ninjas for long-range attacks. We are more prepared than ever to face all of our enemies. Masaki spoke with full conviction. Yes, do they have bijus with them? We have Lady Kushina to face them, they have Kages, we have the young man who can defeat Kages here. Said another Uzumaki, wanting to raise the confidence of his peers. I believe we shouldn't even discuss this, we will keep the children, women, and the men who cannot fight already in the hideouts. The places will be sealed with barriers, since we don't know how the battle will unfold. It will probably come to the middle of the island, and they must be protected while we fight on the front lines, said Minato, and no one disagreed. Then let's prepare the clan. We have at most a day. They will have to stop to reorganize and launch the attack at the same time. So it's better that we all prepare now. Let's begin immediately, said Masaki, as he began to rise. Everyone nodded, there was nothing more to discuss there. The sentinels Minato had placed were already announcing that the enemy was coming and would gather more information a little later. Minato, Kushina, and Suna went to meet Hanabi and Makoto at Kushina's mother's house, while Lady Akahana Uzumaki prepared coffee in the middle of that afternoon. How are things? She asked immediately upon seeing the 3 enter the kitchen after the teleportation. The clan leader will gather everyone now at the beginning of the evening and announce that the attack may come in the middle of the night or tomorrow during the day. If the enemies are more impatient, they will come during the night, but I believe they are too confident and will attack at some point with daylight, in some part of the morning or midday, Minato said, while the atmosphere seemed to immediately grow tense. You're going to win, aren't you? The woman broke the silence, wiping her hands with a cloth and staring at Kushina. Aren't you, Kushina? She said to her daughter, who replied with a firm look. Of course we will, mother. Databane, we're going to win, she said before looking at Minato. Isn't that right, Minato? If you say we can win, then we will win, she spoke with confidence. Of course. We'll make them all regret the day they believed they could fight against the Uzumaki clan, Minato replied. Great. Come, sit at the table. You must be tired after so many hours in that meeting, she said, while Kushina and Suna joined the table. But Minato refused. I need to get some fresh air, if you'll excuse me, he said, wanting to be alone. No one stopped him. Minato left through the door of the house and went to the middle of the courtyard of the woman's home. Looking around, he saw people returning to their houses to rest along the street after an entire day of work in the defense of the clan, mainly in the creation of seals. The people seemed quite agitated and worried. Uzumaki ninjas began running down the street. Attention everyone! Meeting at the beginning of the evening, in front of the clan leader. Don't forget, meeting in front of the clan leader. It is of utmost importance that everyone attend, the messengers shouted, calling the people. Minato, a small voice called him. The blonde looked to a corner and saw a little boy running up to him from the street, while Minato had been leaning against the wall of Kushina's mother's house. What are you doing here, Renji? Minato asked the boy, who should have been with his parents, waiting for them to pick him up. I escaped, he laughed. There was a kind of daycare for the children to stay while their parents fulfilled their duties for the clan. There were many children. It was said there were about 5,000 Uzumaki in the clan, but only teenagers, adults, and elders were counted as combatants. The children, numbering over 300, were not included in that count. The little boy in front of him was only 5 years old. His parents were working in different areas of the clan's defense. His mother was a powerful user of Fuinjutsu and, for that reason, a kunoichi responsible for maintaining the barriers and defensive seals, even before this threat. She had worked in breaking defenses in Konoha's enemy camps during the war. As for his father, he was a combat shinobi specialized in the water element and trained directly in the water jutsu that Suna Senju had brought from the Senju clan, created by the second Hokage, to be cast on a large scale against the enemies at sea. Minato knew the little boy by chance. He had seen him crying before, a cautious boy who saw the blonde for the first time. Minato had approached him and talked to him, cheered him up, since the boy had been very scared after overhearing a discussion between his parents. After meeting Minato, he began to talk to him. The boy looked up to him as a hero, after hearing adults comment about who Minato was. The next day, when he met his parents, they thanked Minato, saying they were happy because he was one of the few outsiders who had come to help the clan. Minato had met some clan members in the past few days. There was the granddaughter of Masaki, Asuma Uzumaki, who showed interest in him like a girl in love, as did many others. Minato escaped from them all, giving no importance to it, since he was quite popular here and known as a war hero and friend of the Uzumakis. He also met other adults, talking with them mainly at night while walking around the clan after an entire day of training and supervising the defenses. For that reason, it was no surprise that he was recognized by some members who passed by on the streets, greeting him while he spoke with Renji. Still, his gaze returned to the boy. You shouldn't run away like that, Minato said. We're in the Uzumaki clan, what's the worst that could happen, the boy teased, and Minato gave a bright smile. The boy had a sharp tongue. But even so, leave the work to the adults, you might get in their way while running around. We're protecting all of you, Minato said. I know, but I wanted to see you helping the clan. I heard you captured one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist, the little boy said. Yes, that was yesterday. We got some interesting information from him. Anyway, your parents are arriving now, Minato replied, as 2 people ran up to the wall where he was talking to the boy. Renji Uzumaki, what are you doing here? The woman shouted, worried about the child, even emphasizing his full name with a certain anger at him not being in the daycare. I ran away, he admitted awkwardly and with some fear of his mother, while the man sighed and looked at Minato. Lord Minato Namikaze. I hope he didn't cause trouble. He said, while Minato shook his head. No, it's all right. We were just talking, Minato replied with a friendly smile. The man nodded, the woman also thanked him, and they let the boy say goodbye to Minato. He remained there, leaning against the wall, watching them leave and observing some ninjas still running through the streets. Minato was trapped in his own thoughts, as he let out a sigh. At nightfall, the clan leader called everyone, and they all attended as he had asked, and soon the speech began. Minato, his 4 girls, Hanabi's grandfather, and Kushina's mother were in a corner. Hello everyone, the leader began. I gathered you all here to share troubling news. He then explained that the attack would begin soon, with the villages already advancing by sea and ships. They would soon reach them. The women, children, and men who could not fight should go to the underground shelters created for safety, where they would be sealed to protect them. The reception of the news was not the best, with everyone becoming very worried, but the leader sighed, determined not to waste any more time. Minato, for his part, also did not want to prolong that announcement. "I'll have to go somewhere else. I just need to organize a few more things," he said to Tsuna at his side, as his eyes began to shift into sage mode. In the next moment, he disappeared, leaving everyone staring at the spot where he had been. Minato appeared at Mount Mayaboku. It was also night there, but a little later due to the different time zone. He appeared directly in the training area, without even announcing his presence. Quickly, he rose into the sky with Jeppo, cut his finger with a kunai, began forming hand seals, and prepared the summoning jutsu. An explosion burst out in the next instant, shaking the area. In the sky, an immense serpentine form appeared, a dragon over 200 meters long. "Minato, what's the problem?" asked Guren, in his blue dragon form, displayed in the sky of Mount Mayaboku. "I need you to be ready to do something for me." "It's time to act, finally," said Minato, with a serious look. Guren nodded firmly. He had already had this conversation with Minato before. He knew that the plan was beginning and that the part involving Guren would be, beyond being one of Minato's great trump cards, his grand finale. Chapter 313 A Meeting Between Enemies begins. Third-person POV. Yuzushiogakure, Year 42. In the middle of the sea, someone advanced at high speed toward the group of ships east of Yuzushiogakure. He headed for the first ship among them, the largest of all, and as soon as he landed on it, he immediately knelt before the person in front of him. "Mizuki-sama," began the ninja with the Kiri headband, keeping himself kneeling before the figure who was analyzing the darkness and the sea ahead of them. "What is the situation?" "Proceed," asked the man with a blue hat, marked with the water kanji symbol, while keeping his arms crossed, now staring at the newcomer. "We have no news about what happened to our men that we sent as scouts. They simply disappeared, my lord, struck down, and no trace was left behind," replied the ninja, while the Mizukage seemed thoughtful. "I see. I think the Uzumaki are resisting well. It's a shame we lost someone valuable in this, but losses are expected. We only need to recover the sword. Still, I worry about some things." "Any movement from Konoha?" the Mizukage asked carefully. "I don't think so, sir. I circled the island to see the coast, and there was nothing in sight. I didn't get too close," said the scout ninja. "I believe it's all right. Hadn't the Hokage assured us that he would not interfere? It doesn't seem advantageous for them to try to protect the Uzumaki at this point, outside the Land of Fire. Our intelligence also hasn't seen any military movement coming from Konoha," said the Kazekage. He grew thoughtful, scratching his chin before continuing, with no one around him speaking and all just waiting for his orders. "We will meet with the other Kage before anything else. I want you to send a message to the north and to the south, to find the fleet of each nation. Try to avoid approaching Uzushio. We don't know exactly what is happening there, but there is something strong enough to bring down one of our 7 swordsmen without leaving a trace," he said, a bit frustrated. By sending one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist as a scout, he believed the man could handle any problem coming from the Uzumaki. Especially since he was the wielder of the Samahata sword, who could transform into a shark and advance easily through the depths of the sea, a terrain difficult to reach even for the Uzumaki or anyone else. Even though the mission was only to observe what was happening, all the scouts sent against the Uzumaki were being struck down one after another. No one returned. Even this powerful ninja also disappeared. He simply vanished. There was no sign of battle. No traces, no signals anywhere across the sea. He and his entire team had vanished. 3 ninjas were assigned to quickly carry the message to the other Kage, disappearing into the darkness of the night. "You know, it's strange. There's also no blow on the horizon," thought the Mizukage aloud, as if something was bothering him deep in his subconscious with this extermination attack, while he stared into the darkness. After all, Yuzushiogakure should be there on the horizon, yet there was no sign of any light. Everything was in complete blackout, as if no lamp or torch had been lit. At the very least, they should see some glow on the horizon. Things seemed quite strange. To begin with, it was obvious that the Uzumaki already knew of their arrival now, already knew of the attack. That changed everything. They had planned to launch a surprise offensive, but the Uzumaki already seemed aware that the enemies were approaching. The question was, how? They had at their disposal all the ships watching for any approach, in addition to spies and ninjas analyzing the seabed. But nothing, absolutely nothing, seemed abnormal. There was no way the Uzumaki, no matter how skilled they were in water jutsu, could spy on them without leaving traces and still inform the entire clan of their approach. And the range of sensors could never be that long. In any case, the leader of the village of water stood there, waiting for the response of his allies. The night went on until the messengers he had sent began to appear, one after the other. Mizukage-sama, the Reikage accepts the meeting. Mizukage-sama, that Tsuchikage accepts a meeting with you and the other Kage. Mizukage-sama, the Kazekage also wishes to be present at this meeting. As soon as he was informed, he nodded with satisfaction while looking at his ninjas. I only want 2 bodyguards with me. Let's head to the meeting point, said the Mizukage. 2 ninjas chosen among the others placed themselves at his side as protectors. They did not really trust even allies from other nations, after all, they would always be betraying one another. Soon they advanced across the sea, running quickly and leaving the fleet behind. The ninjas of Kiri and other nations could walk on water without issue, but the ships were used precisely so they would not need to waste unnecessary chakra to keep themselves afloat on the sea for hours. After all, they still needed energy to plan and execute the battle and to rest. Even if using only their feet was one of the simplest ways of spending chakra, remaining for many hours like that was exhausting for most ninjas. They continued circling the land of the Uzumaki from the south, heading toward another territory, running at high speed until they reached the land of waves, the meeting point that had been suggested to the other Kage by message before they had accepted. The Mizukage could not help but feel pride. After all, Kiri was the most powerful nation after Konoha, and it was certainly they who had caused the most trouble for the Land of Fire in the Second War. He was informed of all the reports from the different borders in the war against Konoha, and from all sides, it was Kiri who fared the best, even having to face the Uzumaki, the Hokage himself, his companion Danzo, and thousands of Konoha ninjas. Even so, it had always been difficult to deal with them, to the point of constantly requesting reinforcements to hold that border. It was no wonder they possessed 2 Jinchuriki, the 7 swordsmen of the mist, and he himself, the Mizukage. He felt like the true leader of this scheme against the Uzumaki, believing that Kiri was the most powerful among the 4 nations gathered, and that he would have the final word even before the other Kage. Thus, they arrived at the meeting point on a part of the coast of the Land of Waves. There no one would bother them. The Land of Waves had no military force nor hidden village. It was merely an independent territory, without great resources, used more as a battlefield in the Second Great War than anything else. The location was strategic, mainly because it was close to Yuzushiogakure, with all able to meet there. It did not take long for other ninjas to arrive. The Mizukage observed the first ones approaching, they were San Shinobi. He stared at them for a while. Certainly, that was not the Kazekage he remembered. What is going on here? I invited your Kage. What kind of joke is this? The Mizukage grew irritated upon seeing someone who was not the leader he recalled. The Kazekage you knew is dead, replied another man, catching the leader of the Land of Water by surprise. Dead? What do you mean, dead? What happened? He had no idea of the news, since Suna had not sent any messages in recent days, nor did he have information about what was happening in Konoha. If you want to know, the answer was Konoha. More specifically, one of their ninjas assassinated the former Kazekage over a week ago, in the Land of Wind itself, said the man, while he and his bodyguards, one on each side, growled as they spoke. The Mizukage and his own guards raised their eyebrows at what they had just heard. Well, this is unexpected. I'd like to hear more, since you're saying that a ninja from Konoha killed your most powerful shinobi. This makes me think the balance has shifted sooner than expected. I bet you want revenge against Konoha, he said, analyzing the situation, foreseeing the possibility of a new war. Yes, we will never forget this. But, in any case, we were already planning the downfall of the ninja world's peace after the end of the Uzumaki, weren't we? We're just bringing some things forward, said the man firmly, while the Mizukage slowly assimilated his words. Your name is Raza, isn't it? You made a name for yourself in the Second War. They say you can manipulate golden sand, unlike your predecessor who manipulated iron powder. That hat looks good on you, interesting, said the Mizukage, with a gleam of recognition in his eyes. Can you tell me exactly who killed your leader? He asked with a faint smile on his face, finding it amusing, while Raza stared at him with a decidedly unfriendly look, not liking that smile. I'll say that with the other Kage, I don't want to keep repeating myself. But, in any case, it's not hard to understand. After all, Konoha doesn't have many ninjas capable of fighting and killing a Kazekage, do they? He said. The Mizukage seemed thoughtful. There was something more hidden in that statement. Certainly that man was withholding more information that he would reveal, waiting for the new Kazekage to disclose it before the other Kage, so he did not press. However, it seemed to be quite interesting. It was not every day that a Kage died, and this was the first time, in the generation of the thirds, that such a thing had happened. Anyway, I believe you are the new Kazekage with that hat, correct? He asked. Yes, Raza replied. I was appointed 2 days ago. By the way, are there any reports coming from the west? Are you asking about the Land of Fire? Are you worried they might interfere? The Mizukage asked in surprise. I don't know, Raza said. After the attack we suffered, I know nothing more. It could be a problem. Certainly I and the others do not know what is happening in the Land of Fire, he said. After everything, Minato disappeared, leaving the corpse of the former leader behind along with Orochimaru, whom they tried to kill immediately after the loss. Even though Minato himself tried to kill Orochimaru several times. The ninjas of the Land of Wind wanted retaliation. Orochimaru was the closest to that, but he escaped. When Raza woke 2 days later with multiple internal injuries caused by Minato, he had almost lost organs that were damaged and nearly died. Raza shuddered just thinking about it. He had seen how Minato seemed to toy with him this time, being much more powerful than he had shown in their encounter during the Second War. The Land of Wind went crazy after the loss of the former leader. Even so, he was called to the elders' meeting, they quickly began to act, and he was named leader. Now he was here leading the attack, not missing the opportunity. After all, if they really want to deal with Konoha, they must weaken it, therefore they need to exterminate Konoha's ally and obtain its secrets to use in the next war. Peace was never an option, not now. Soon another group of ninjas arrived. The Raikage and the Tsuchikage, along with their bodyguards, arrived together. The Mizukage stared at them with a piercing look at the new Kazekage floating in the air. He even expected to see him there, but not wearing the hat of the leader of the hidden village of the Land of Wind without the former Kazekage present. Even the Raikage had an eyebrow raised. He still bore a scar on his chest, a mark from the Second War, a wound caused by a boy from Konoha, someone the Raikage still wanted to find for revenge. Well, anyway, now that we are here, we can begin the meeting. Third Raikage, third Tsuchikage and fourth Kazekage, the third Mizukage completed, while the three leaders nodded. The meeting for the destruction of the Uzumaki clan would begin there. Chapter 314, a discussion about Minato Namikaze among the four Kages. Third-person POV. Land of Waves, Year 42. Then now could you reveal who killed your Kage? I'm very curious to know who was brave enough to do that. The Kages did not fail to ask the Kazekage. After all, there were only a few guesses as to who would have the capacity to accomplish such a feat. The Kages stared at Raza, who looked at them for a moment. Minato Namikaze, also known as the Yellow Flash of Konoha. He replied. The reaction was immediate. The first to react was the Raikage, who clenched his teeth tightly. The Tsuchikage also kept a look full of contempt. The third to react was the Mizukage, who burst out laughing, starting to laugh loudly. Ha 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 ha. Are you telling me that Brat killed your Kage? If I remember correctly, he has a history with each of you three. From what I read in the reports, he also caused trouble with 2 of my swordsmen of the mist during the Kage summit. He said in an amused tone, before continuing. The brat was already bold at that time and none of you had the competence to kill him before he grew stronger. The signs were clear, he became extremely powerful since he entered the war, standing out. But neither you, Raza, nor the former Kazekage, nor even the third Tsuchikage on the western border, had enough competence to kill him. I say this about you too, Reikage, you left to fight against the boy in the north wounded. What a shame, and you still call yourselves Kages. You talk as if it were something easy to do. Raza growled. You didn't face him, you don't know what he's capable of. Great, then explain what the brat is capable of, challenged the Mizukage, with a cruel smile. Before that, you mentioned Konoha setting a trap. I would like to understand what happened. Why did the Hokage himself decide to eliminate the ninja he had protected at the Kage summit? The Tsuchikage asked. We don't know exactly what happened for Konoha to provoke such wrath from the third Hokage, but I believe the brat was already seen by his own village and by its elders as a threat. Raza began. After standing out so much in the war, he would certainly become too dangerous. However, Konoha could not sacrifice a ninja like him so openly. So they chose a disguise. After all, from what I noticed, that old man named Danzo certainly didn't like Minato Namikaze one bit. Raza snarled, even at the mention of that name. He then began to explain how the Hokage had contacted the third Kazekage, offering a proposal to create a false mission and ambush with 5 elite squads, while Suna would also provide 5 more groups of ninjas to complete the siege. It was the perfect opportunity to eliminate the ninja we had wanted for a long time. After all, Minato Namikaze not only invaded our village, infiltrated among us, but also changed the course of the war, bringing the first great victory for Konoha against us. He gave the Land of Fire an advantage, not to mention the countless number of ninjas who fell dead at the hands of the Yellow Flash. Besides, many of our plans were frustrated by that boy's intervention. There was hatred directed at the Yellow Flash Connor throughout the Land of Wind. Everyone knew his name as a mix of resentment and anger. In this regard, Minato had managed to reach a higher level than Tsukumo Hatake, who had killed 2 war heroes of Tsunegakure and Sasori's parents. In total, there were 120 ninjas to kill him, to surround him in an area where we placed countless traps. Pondered the Mizukage. But you're telling me that even so, you were massacred? Soon as reinforcements arrived and your own Kage died at the boy's hands while he was trying to kill Orochimaru of Konoha at the same time? The Mizukage's laughter was no longer present, he looked incredulous at what he had just heard. The other Kages listened, without laughter, with scowling looks, as if that news displeased them even more and as if they underestimated Minato Namikaze, thinking he wouldn't be as dangerous as the report said. And where were you when Minato killed your Kage? Asked the Reikage, with a suspicious look. The anger had never left his expression. I was unconscious. I was severely injured and left in a corner of the desert when Minato struck me down. When reinforcements arrived, they took me and carried me back to the village. I woke up later, after 2 days. The village was in chaos, replied Raza, while the 3 remained silent for a moment. Explain exactly what happened. I know that spacetime jutsu of the second Hokage is troublesome. And I know the boy had developed an even deadlier version of it. However, what you are saying is, at the very least, insane. Not even the second Hokage could handle such enemy force, much less come out alive. How exactly did this happen, said the Tsuchikage, incredulous. Not even he remembered Minato being so dangerous. As much as their fights never had a clear winner, Minato always displayed a trump card against the Tsuchikage. The Tsuchikage had the ability to float in the air and generally that was an advantage, but Minato had something that even defied logic, as if he stepped on an invisible platform and managed to kick the air with some kind of unknown ability. Not even he imagined that Minato would be even deadlier to the point of dealing with such force and even surpassing it. Let me tell you something that changes everything, said the fourth Kazekage in a serious tone. If his body is not physical, we tried to strike him in various ways, starting with crushing him from beneath the earth. He paused. But somehow he didn't suffer any damage. In fact, all the damage his body suffers turns into a kind of light. His body is intangible and, at the same time, that makes him invincible against any attack, completed the Kazekage. You're saying he has the same ability as the clan from the Land of Water? Like the Hozuki clan with their hydration? Asked the Mizukage, shocked. More or less like your clan. Only the problem is that we all know the weakness of the Hozuki clan is the lightning element. But Minato Namikaze, he is made of light. All the advanced jutsus launched against him, he dealt with easily. His body recovered instantly, turning wounds into light before they disappeared. He didn't even show signs of pain when losing an arm before recovering it, which shows that he isn't actually being hurt. Besides that, his speed and attacks with this strange light element are far too dangerous. He seemed to be holding back during the Second Ninja War, or else he developed his abilities even further. Maybe that put fear into the Hokage, I don't know. Raza said. The three remained silent after hearing this, pondering. Certainly his speed was not easy to deal with. Even for the Raikage, who didn't fail to comment, remembering how Minato easily pursued him that night, while the only thing that protected him was his thunder armor. He could do nothing but wait to be hit by kicks and punches that even he could not react to. When we fought, he would appear in an instant, and that wasn't the teleportation jutsu he sometimes used, at least not most of the time. He said, still remembering that Minato had placed a Hiraishin seal on his body. But that doesn't mean he always used it. There were moments when the Raikage caught glimpses of his pure speed, which even I could not keep up with, said the Raikage, clenching his fists. The Tsuchikage seemed worried, but remained calm. You said that someone identified as Minato Namikaze had interfered in a reconnaissance mission 6 months ago, correct? Yes. Our ninjas were taken down with techniques described as Minato's during the Second War. He appeared with an Umbu team. Maybe Minato had gotten in touch with the Hokage somehow. And he himself asked to return the report, since the scroll ended up back in the hands of our ninjas and Sunas, after they woke up unharmed. Replied the Mizukage. Do you think the boy could be from the Uzumaki clan? That he could be interfering in Konoha precisely to change the Hokage's decision? Tsuchikage asked, still analyzing the situation. I find it unlikely. We haven't had any significant mobilization from Konoha in recent months. They wouldn't react that easily. And the strength of Kumo and Iwagakure is in the north. We haven't received any report of Konoha's movements at the border, said the Raikage. This is strange, said the Mizukage, now quite concerned. The Hokage sends to kill one of Konoha's most powerful ninjas and fails. Then Minato returns to the Land of Fire. Something happened there and we are blind to it. We should have answers. I don't know what happened, but Konoha won't interfere here in the Land of Whirlpools. And there is no sign of activity within the Land of Fire. But the Uzumaki clan is also strange. It's as if they are completely erased. Maybe we should send scouts. We can see what's happening there before the attack, said the Tsuchikage. Maybe, but our scouts are disappearing one by one as they approach the island. I don't think the Uzumaki left the island, but they certainly know we're coming, the fourth Kazekage said. That's worrying. You brought your Jinchuriki, I hope, asked the Raikage. Obviously, replied the Kazekage, while the Tsuchikage and the Raikage nodded. I have Rashi and Han with me, replied the Tsuchikage. I have the 2 tails and the 8 tails with me. The Raikage informed, also not minding naming the Jinchuriki since they weren't famous. After all, they were recent with their former dead. The Raikage found a good partner for his son, and an ideal boy to seal the Hachibi in his body, but the boy was still very young and he did not intend to sacrifice him now. So he kept him for after this dispute, placing the 8 tails in another body to use later. He wanted to sacrifice the Jinchuriki with this attack. I have the 1 tail with me, Raza said, while the others scoffed with their looks. In terms of Jinchuriki, Suna was irrelevant. Great, I have the 6 tails and the 3 tails in my forces. And my opinion about Konoha is that I don't believe the Leaf Village can deal with all of us at the same time, even if they try to interfere. Even if this Minato shows up, said the Raikage, and everyone agreed. It would even be better if Minato were on the field. I root for that. After all, we have a chance to defeat him. He has already become too dangerous for anyone, and even if we remove the Uzumaki clan as Konoha's allies, Minato would still be on the battlefield in a war against them and would not be easy to deal with in the same way. If one Kage fell, another of us could also fall. I assure you, he is much more powerful than he showed in the Second War, and already had the capacity to wound you, said Raza, looking at the Tsuchikage and the Reikage. Very well. Then let's start the strategy. We will attack at dawn. I don't want to wait long, we'll let whatever movement the Uzumaki make finish. Let's organize our troops to attack at the first hour of the morning, said the Mizukage, and the three nodded. It was time to act. We will launch an attack from all sides. Maybe the Tsuchikage will advance from the west and be a wall if Konoha sends reinforcements. Or even so the Uzumaki will have nowhere to run, we'll completely encircle them. Agree, the Mizukage spoke again. Don't give us orders like that, muttered the Kazekage, with contained anger. Do you agree or not? If someone has a better plan, please share it, growled the Mizukage. I have no problem with that. Fine, I'll go to the west of the island, replied the Tsuchikage. It's planned then. First, we will take down the barriers surrounding the island, then we will launch the attack. While the barriers are active, we will not be able to pass without the Uzumaki's authorization. When we break them, we can invade the island and eliminate them at once, the Kazekage said, and everyone nodded. The attack would finally begin in a few hours. Chapter 315, Let's Welcome the Enemies. Third-person POV. C. Year 42. When the first rays of sunlight began to reflect directly on the sea, everything seemed calm. Soon, Uzushiobakure was illuminated by the morning sun. However, just as the entire island had once been shrouded in darkness, without a single glimmer of light or any sign of life, there was no visible movement on the island. It was as if the place were completely deserted. Soon, footsteps began to splash against the water as a group of ninjas approached from several kilometers away, carefully observing the island. How strange, there's no movement, nothing, murmured a ninja wearing a Kumo headband. I saw a ninja with the Cloud Village headband, said another, using a magnifying glass to try to locate any sign of activity on the island, but everything seemed empty. There was nothing unusual at the edges. Should we get closer to take a better look? One of the companions asked. No, not yet. Let's just report this to Command and Reikage-sama. Something's off, the others replied, and they began to withdraw, returning to where the ships from the Mist Village were anchored. The same thing occurred in the southern, eastern, and western regions. Ninjas from the earth, sand, and water villages reacted the same way when they sent teams to investigate. In none of the corners of the island was there any movement from the Uzumaki, which was extremely strange and concerning, as there was no concrete information about their whereabouts. They continued scanning the island's perimeter in search of enemies. Then they passed this information to their commands. All four Kage, who had previously gathered together, shared the same concern. What's going on? Did the Uzumaki already know we were coming? An officer asked. Maybe they abandoned the island to flee the attack, suggested another. Konoha could very well have sheltered them in the Land of Fire. The atmosphere was filled with uncertain questions, and their leaders were becoming increasingly frustrated. That uncertainty alone had already delayed the attack. The Kage had to send messengers to contact the other attack groups from each village. First, they wanted to understand exactly what was happening. A reconnaissance group was dispatched immediately after, quickly heading toward the island to check the situation. They advanced at high speed until, just as they were about to reach the shore, they suddenly encountered a barrier that emitted electric blue lightning. The discharge struck the group with such force that it knocked them out and hurled them backward, stunned. Some were killed. The range of this barrier seemed greater than expected, given the island's distance, reported one of the observers, preparing to transmit the report in case the first team didn't make it back alive. Let's relay this information, said another, as they returned to warn their Kage. All four sides experienced the same reaction. Their groups were neutralized upon colliding with the barrier, which extended farther from the village than what was stated in Konoha's reports and intelligence. It seems we can't trust Konoha after all. Another uncertainty began to arise among those who heard about the barrier. while the Kage pondered after hearing that report. It seems the Uzumaki are just hiding and set up a barrier, or they're deceiving us. In reality, they ran away with their tails between their legs, murmured a ninja, with malice. If they're fleeing, it's a shame we'll have the island to pillage and kill no Uzumaki. I'd like to chop off many red-haired heads after the number of Kiri ninja they killed. I hope they don't leave. They say Uzumaki women are quite beautiful. I'd love to have fun with their bodies after killing their husbands, he said in a tone full of cruelty. His comrades looked at this one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. He was known for criminal acts, especially against enemy kunoichis. For that reason the village tolerated it reluctantly. Be silent, growled the 3rd Mizukage. Let's advance from all sides. It's time to attack from the north, east, west and south. Inform the others. Let's begin. Then he turned to the messengers. You know what to do. With that, they departed for the other forces of the other villages. The ships set off again toward the island, both in the east and in the north and south. The forces advanced rapidly as soon as they received the order. The attack would be coordinated. Meanwhile, within Yuzushiogakure, a large contingent had gathered, more than 3,000 shinobi ready to fight for the clan. What is the situation? Asked the Uzumaki clan leader to the young man in front of him. Minato was concentrated in the center, in a lotus position meditating, with an expanded sensory range. With the observation haki and being a sensor, he could perceive everything happening on the island and beyond, where no other Uzumaki sensor would reach. They are finally moving. The 3rd Mizukage group is already advancing and has passed on information. Suna and Kumo are also beginning to move. IWA will soon move from the west. Let's prepare, Minato said in a serious tone. Well, the time is almost here, the leader murmured. I will be the first to make a move, said Minato, standing up with determination in his eyes, while natural chakras soon began to change his blue eyes. What do you intend to do? Suna asked as he approached, watching Minato enter sage mode. Let's say I'll go welcome them, replied Minato, opening a more malicious smile. They checked the sea, but couldn't distinguish the signs beneath the water. They can't tell the Gyurin clan fish apart from other marine life. I'll use that advantage, he said. He knew that all the lookouts had checked the area, thinking they might be being watched, but they couldn't identify anything unusual. Meanwhile, 2 horned fish watched at the seabed, hidden. Do you need help, Minato? Kushina asked immediately, offering to assist with her powers. There's no need. I'll do this alone, Minato replied, maintaining his smile. He knew he would have only one chance. Once he acted, he would have to disappear, as he would reveal the secrets they were hiding and make his position useless, also having to withdraw the fish from the sea. But he would take advantage of that opportunity with something devastating. Now Minato could sense all the ships coming from every direction, drawing closer by the minute. You must follow the plan. Show nothing but the empty island while they get close enough, until they start falling into the traps. The barriers will withstand the first attacks, even Bijidama's, and if the barriers are broken, Kushina will act, said Minato, and everyone nodded. His confidence and calmness put the Uzumaki at ease as the crowd listened to his words in silence. Minato! Wait a moment! He turned at the sound of Makoto's voice as she grabbed his arm and looked at him. Something wrong? He asked. You told me you wanted a cloak 2 days ago. I hadn't told you until now, but I made one for you, just as you described yesterday, that kind of mark you wanted to wear, she said, a bit embarrassed by the gesture. Minato wore entirely dark clothing, simple pants and shirt, no vest. He only had his storage scroll bracelets and the sword strapped to his back. He was carrying plenty of kunai marked with his jutsu seals and others with explosive tags, thousands of ninja weapons. Knowing he would use them all in battle, along with his sword, fighting with kenjutsu. In addition, he had spread numerous Hiratian seals across the island, ensuring versatility on the battlefield in case the enemies broke through the barriers, allowing him to teleport freely as he wished. A few days earlier, he had spent more time with Makoto, the mother of his child, and had told her he wanted an outfit for this war, something that represented him with a new style, not as Hokage, but something similar. Surprised, He watched Makoto pull from a scroll a thick fabric and unfold a black cloak with red flames at the hem, without the fourth Hokage symbol on the back. "When did you make this?" he asked curiously. "I left a clone in the village to sew it when we went to Mount Mayaboku." Kushina's mother provided the fabric and the needles with thread, she replied, opening a satisfied smile. "I didn't know you could sew," he said, laughing, though clearly pleased by the surprise. "I can handle kunai and needles better than many Uchiha." "Don't underestimate me, Minato Namikaze," she said in a playful tone. "Well, then I thank you," he laughed, taking the cloak and putting it on. He liked the result, sleeveless, light, and functional. Black was the perfect color for a rogue ninja, unlike the ceremonial white a Hokage was expected to wear. "It looks good on you," Kushina complimented, half sulking, arms crossed, perhaps jealous that the gift had come from Makoto. Minato's eyes shifted back toward the other directions. He simply leapt away to an area where no one was nearby. All the Uzumaki's eyes turned toward him. Landing on top of one of the buildings, he performed the shadow clone jutsu, and 3 clones appeared, each drawing upon the natural chakra to its fullest. He didn't need to say anything, all the clones knew what to do. The 3 clones raised their hands along with the original body. In a moment, their hands began to spin, and the Rasengan began to form. Before finishing it, they infused Wind Nature Chakra, swiftly creating 4 Rasen Shuriken. 3 made with natural chakra by the clones, and the 4th by the original body. The jutsu whirred like propellers in the air and then vanished one by one. The Mizukage watched, slightly frustrated, believing the Uzumaki had fled, as he looked upon the calm island, without any signs betraying the presence of enemies. Then, suddenly, he felt an immense surge of chakra. His eyes turned back to the deck and then to the water, nearly to the seabed. As a sensor, it was easy to perceive that a massive amount of chakra was gathering there. All the sensors monitoring the surroundings detected it simultaneously. "Take cover," someone shouted from every direction. Underwater, near the pair of horned fish, the water currents began to stir, creating chaos at the ocean floor. Minato was there, still with his hand raised and the Rasen Shuriken active. He looked toward the surface and moved his hand forward, launching the projectile toward the enemy ships, covering the entire surface. It wasn't an isolated attack. At that moment, multiple Rasen Shuriken, like chakra bombs, were fired from the ocean depths toward the fleets of Suna, Kiri, Kumo, and Iwa all at once. Before anyone could react, they reached the ship formations and exploded, devastating all vessels within the blast radius. It would not be the enemies who struck first, but the resistance of Uzushiogakure. Chapter 316 Uzumakis vs 4 Ninja Villages 01. Third-person POV. C. Year 42. Without being able to prepare for such an attack coming from the depths of the sea, the vortex of the Rasen Shuriken cut through the water, even leaving a whirlpool along the line it passed, advancing at full speed toward the center of each fleet. The leaders and officers of Kiri's fleet shouted, the sensors were terrified, and nothing could stop what was about to come. In the next moment, everyone looked toward the center of the fleet, where a huge ball of cutting light emerged from the sea into the air, emitting a piercing sound throughout the area. That same scene was happening to every fleet surrounding the island of the Uzumakis. Even the ship split in half when the Rasen Shuriken hit them squarely in the middle of Minato's attack path. As soon as the jutsu rose 20 meters into the air, the glow intensified as it froze in place, and in the next instant, it enveloped all nearby ships in a massive blue and white chakra sphere with a radius of 20 meters, exploding amidst the water and debris as the light expanded, destroying everything. Everyone within that area glowed like shadows within the light until they vanished, consumed by the explosion and turning into dust. The Uzumakis hidden inside Uzushiogakure began to see a faint glow in each of the 4 directions of the island. In the next moment, thunderous explosions echoed from those same 4 directions. Minato reappeared among the Uzumaki once again, his cloak fluttering from the teleport. He whistled with a smile. "Looks like you managed to make quite a mess," said the Uzumaki leader, stunned by the first attack. Minato, unlike everyone else, had launched the attack in return, showing how dangerous his teleportation jutsu was when combined with his other long-range techniques. "Yes," he replied with a sigh, though maintaining a smile. He didn't look tired at all, even after spending enough chakra from his original body to use the Rasen Shuriken. He was already quickly recovering, absorbing natural chakra to restore his body. I've also gathered all the fish and teleported them to the middle of the sea to meet their leader. We don't need them anymore, said Minato, knowing that the creatures from Guren's clan would no longer be useful. Very well. That will certainly make them quite angry, commented Hanabi with a satisfied smile as she approached Minato. Yes. I'll just go take my position now, as agreed, said Minato, not wanting to waste any more time there. He pulled a kunai from his pocket and threw it, even using his arm with armament haki to further increase the force of the throw, sending it shooting into the sky like a bullet before disappearing. The leader of the Uzumaki clan was satisfied with that. He shouted to his men. Let's all get ready. We still have a war to face, he said, as everyone began to take their positions, still remaining hidden. Minato continued advancing through the sky, quickly passing through the clouds until he reached a height invisible to any enemy ninja over the sea surrounding the island. When he got there, he stopped, and with the power of the light fruit, he stayed suspended in the air due to light's ability to fly, gazing toward every corner of the island. From there, he could even see the planet's horizon curve in a spherical shape. Well. Now it's time to have a little fun, murmured Minato with a faint smile, as he analyzed the four directions and observed the fleets now visible from where he was. In one of the fleets, Kiri's. How many casualties did we take? Exclaimed the Mizukage angrily, watching the destruction of dozens of ships. The explosion wasn't enough to destroy even 10% of the fleet, but it hit a large portion of it, wiping out a considerable number of vessels without anyone being able to do anything. That had been an S-rank jutsu. Even the water ninjas weren't used to dealing with that kind of technique. They were more frustrated than any other fleet. My lord, we lost at least 200 mist ninjas in this attack. But no commanders or any ninja from our ranks worth mentioning. Murmured one of the officers, delivering the report. How did we suffer such losses before even reaching the island? He said angrily. How did the Uzumaki launch that attack? What kind of jutsu was that? The Mizukage was furious, seeking answers from his comrades. But all of them had only seen a ball of chakra appear with a sharp sound in the air, exploding in the next instant as the center of the fleet was destroyed. We don't know, my lord. We've never seen anything like it. We didn't know the Uzumaki had such skill, replied his subordinate, making the leader grit his teeth. Perhaps it's not just the Uzumaki, murmured an old man, approaching the Mizukage. You know. I heard that a powerful ninja from the Leaf Village had a jutsu similar to what we saw, according to rumors. He could launch wind chakra and cause an explosion that covered a wide area, an S-rank jutsu, murmured the man, while the Mizukage brought a hand to his face in frustration. How could I forget that, he grumbled, quickly recalling the reports. Minato Namikaze. He said with anger, while his men remained silent. I want everyone on alert. Don't search the sea just yet. If it's him, he must have placed some seals beneath us. It's no wonder we couldn't anticipate this, and our sensors aren't picking up anything about who launched the jutsu. Search the entire sea immediately, ordered the Mizukage, knowing how dangerous that was. If Minato could move with his teleportation jutsu and still launch high-level attacks like that, they were doomed. The Mizukage stared at the horizon, filled with anger, frustration, and caution. So Konoha is here. He's here. Maybe the Uzumaki didn't flee after all, murmured the leader of the hidden mist village as the fleet tried to reorganize. While the Mizukage took time to identify Minato Namikaze, it wasn't a problem for the other three forces to realize what had happened. As soon as they saw the explosions, the Kages, the Reikage, the Kazekage, and the Tsuchikage all had the same thought. He's here, they exclaimed almost simultaneously. All three had seen those jutsus in person. There was only one person in the world capable of such a thing. Quickly, several ninjas began diving into the sea in search of Minato or any seal. They knew how dangerous he was. If he had placed seals all over the ocean floor, he could launch new attacks from any point while teleporting beneath them, a terrifying possibility. Even so, they believed they still had a chance. Minato couldn't keep up that chakra consumption for long. Using teleportation and such high-level jutsus required an enormous amount of chakra, even for him. They just had to be careful not to lose anyone important. And Minato, high above in the sky, didn't seem worried. Even without clearly sensing the chakra of everyone below from that altitude, he crossed his fingers again after absorbing more natural chakra up there, preparing for his next move. Minato quickly created 4 more clones, which vanished at the same time, while the original remained in the sky. Meanwhile, the ninjas of Kiri were searching the seabed more efficiently than anyone else, using jutsus to detect any seals at the bottom of the ocean. One of them ended up finding a kunai after moving a stone. Upon seeing the seal engraved on it, his eyes widened. When he was about to grab the weapon to destroy it, a hand appeared out of nowhere, seizing the kunai before he could react. In a swift motion, Minato appeared in front of the ninja, raised the kunai, and drove it into the man's neck as his eyes widened in terror. Blood spurted through the water, and he died instantly, his underwater breathing jutsu dissipating. The attack alerted the other ninjas, who immediately noticed Minato standing before them. Before they could react, the blonde didn't stay still. He began a sequence of hand seals and then launched a wind-release jutsu. A powerful gust stirred the water, creating a series of cutting blades that spread in all directions. The ninjas tried to defend themselves but were struck one by one, their bodies sliced apart as if by an invisible razor. Those farther away, out of range, watched their comrades die in an instant. Panic spread as they began forming hand seals underwater, while others swam to the surface to warn their superiors, though it was unnecessary, as all of Kiri's fleet sensors were already screaming to the Mizukage about a new ninja below, reaping lives. Minato then noticed several shapes moving rapidly through the water as the enemy ninjas finished their jutsus. Sharks made of chakra were being summoned, charging toward him. He immediately drew a katana. A weapon that the original body had left for that clone. Moving his arm to the side, he gripped the sword, channeling chakra through it. He couldn't use haki, being only a clone, but that didn't stop him from demonstrating his mastery of kenjutsu. After all, his master had been one of the greatest swordsmen in the world, Tsukumo Hatake. With a swift motion, Minato shot forward, unleashing a straight slash over 15 meters long. The strike cut through the water like a wave of energy, slicing apart every enemy attack in its path. The sea roared from the impact, and the line of chakra kept advancing, shredding the aquatic sharks one by one. The Kiri ninjas, who had been confident moments ago, swallowed hard as they watched their entire jutsu being destroyed. The chakra blade continued forward, striking them before they could escape, cutting through them as if they were made of paper. The sea turned red. Limbs floated among the bubbles of blood, and muffled screams echoed underwater. Many were sliced in half, few managed to escape. Satisfied with the result, Minato formed a wind seal in blue, creating a bubble around his face so he could breathe again. More ninjas began approaching from the ships as reinforcements, swimming quickly toward him. That stretch of ocean was now completely shrouded in a red mist of blood. Those who had been fighting Minato and survived immediately felt fear take hold. They tried to flee as other reinforcements closed in fast, beginning to form several hand seals. One of them, an Earth Release user, managed to catch Minato's clone off guard, finishing his jutsu as he clapped both hands together. Soon, the ground began to tremble. A powerful Earth-style jutsu had been activated, creating an earthquake combined with the submerged environment. The entire area started to destabilize, cracking violently as the water pressure increased, forming whirlpools and sucking everything around, while the Kiri ninjas created jutsus to push the water downward as well. Some Kiri ninjas ended up being dragged along, trying to swim but getting pulled in together with the sliced bodies of their comrades from the earlier sword strike. Everyone was dragged downward by the force of the water. Minato was also swallowed by one of the fissures that opened, disappearing among the rifts. The Earth-style user then began forming new seals, trying to close the area and permanently seal what was left of the enemy. Earth and water merged, locking the surrounding space like a natural trap. The ninjas watched, satisfied. None of them knew they had defeated only a clone, nor that all the other fleets had been attacked in the same way minutes earlier. No reports had been sent yet, as everyone was still dealing with another enemy assault. However, even though it was only a clone, Minato still possessed the same power and reputation as the original. He had shared part of the natural chakra. At that moment, amidst the chaos and buried deep below, something began to shine within the cracks. Suddenly, the ground trembled again, and an intense light burst forth, followed by a sharp, slicing sound. A sphere of chakra with spinning blades shot out at high speed from within the fissure. It was another Raisin Shuriken. The clone vanished the next instant, exploding due to the massive amount of chakra used so far, exhausting itself and leaving only the sword behind. The Earth-style ninja, caught completely off guard, had no time to react. The chakra sphere struck him head-on, slicing his body in half, legs separated from torso, a quick and terrible death. The Raisin Shuriken kept moving, heading back toward the fleet. "No, impossible," shouted the Mizukage, desperate as he sensed it. In the next moment, the Raisin Shuriken exploded again, destroying another large portion of ships and further reducing the strength of the Mist Fleet. Chapter 317 Uzumakis vs 4 Ninja Villages 02. Third-person POV. C. Year 42. Another part of Kiri's forces was destroyed the next moment, as the explosion consumed yet another section of the fleet's ships. "Damn it! How did we let this happen again?" the Mizukage shouted, watching more ninjas jump into the water to try to find Minato again, right after the explosion ended. "My lord, we didn't find anything. He disappeared. I think it was just a clone." "What should we do, Mizukage-sama?" one of the ninjas said, bringing a report. The Mizukage clenched his teeth and looked at the ships. He had already lost almost 20% of his strength before even reaching the Uzumaki. How could they continue like this? "Listen, everyone. I want all ships separated from each other and to keep a safe distance, so the enemy will have a harder time attacking us again, understood?" he shouted, as he began to move the ship, ordering the others to spread out, making it harder for any other attack like that jutsu to hit them. The other fleets didn't fare any better than Kiri's fleet, while Minato had an even easier time fighting on the water due to the lack of so many talented water-style users. Suna lost approximately 23% of its forces, IWA lost 18%, and Kumo lost 20%. Because he had more advantage over the other fleets, Minato managed to sustain his clone long enough to emerge from the water after launching the Raisin Shuriken. He quickly engaged in battle above the water with all the ninjas attacking him the moment he appeared, continuously striking his enemies one by one as he advanced from ship to ship, attacking any Kiri ninja while they shouted curses at him and tried to kill him. But even for a clone, he was far superior to ordinary ninjas. In IWA, everyone immediately saw Minato Namikaze using the remaining chakra he had left, continuing to attack one by one, leaping into the air after escaping an enemy jutsu, drawing his simple sword, channeling chakra into it, and taking position to use the same kenjutsu he had used against Kiri. Once ready, he unleashed a slash that shot through the ships, blowing one of them apart and shattering it into countless pieces, while men screamed, some being cut down and killed before they could even make a sound, falling into silence. Some immediately moved away from the affected area, trying not to meet the same fate as their comrades. Minato's sword began to crack at that moment, being just a simple weapon like all the ones the clones had taken. He prepared to defend against the next attacks as he was falling through the air, but before he could do anything, the space around him began to shine, forming a cube of light. Despite the situation he was in, he only sighed. He didn't show anger or grit his teeth, he simply accepted his fate, for he no longer had chakra to teleport and escape. His gaze only rested on the one who had cast the jutsu and Oanoki floating in the air, glaring at him with rage before activating his jutsu midair. The next moment, the Tsuchikage activated the jutsu and the entire space within the cube shone brightly. Minato should have been turned to dust when the light dissipated, and there was no longer any sign of the clone. The Tsuchikage kept his gaze fixed in midair, checking if Minato had truly vanished. "That was a clone," he muttered in frustration. It was just a clone. He clenched his teeth, realizing that all his efforts and losses had been caused by nothing more than a copy of Minato. "Stay alert. Don't let him launch another attack," the third Tsuchikage shouted to the troops. On Suna's fleet, Minato was dodging golden sand on one of the ships, while several other puppets were raised by other ninjas, firing contaminated trackers. He tried to evade them, using mainly the simple sword to defend himself from the attacks. "Damn brat! You'll pay for what you did to the Kazekage," one of the ninjas snarled. You should have thought about that before thinking you could ambush me in your desert. You're too foolish if you think I started all this. Remember, it was you. So don't play dumb. Minato said calmly, dodging another attack like a rain of kunai. He quickly swung his arm with the sword, deflecting all of them and moving out of their path. While he was in the air, the golden sand finally reached him, grabbing his feet. He quickly slashed it with his sword, but many grains still clung to his leg and pulled him down before he could react. Without all his abilities active, the clone was soon captured, being covered by sand and enclosed in the infamous sand coffin. Raza extended his hand toward him, furious. You will die here, Minato, for what you did to Suna's former Kazekage, Raza said, spitting out the words in rage. I know you're just a clone, but listen to my words and pass them to your original, he finished, tearing out the words with frustration. You've achieved nothing, Suna. If this is what you expected to accomplish with your attack on Yuzushin Obikure, the only thing you'll find is the death of all of you. Minato replied, still covered in sand, staring at Raza. Say that after we've finished all of you. The next moment, Raza clenched his hand, and the sand tightened until the man exploded into smoke. He was just a clone after all. One of Suna's men looked at his fallen comrades scattered across the ships, and there were also those who had simply turned to dust amidst the explosion. Remember. Never doubt our strength, another older man replied to the young member of Sunigakure. Raza was frustrated. That certainly didn't help the morale of his men, who were becoming increasingly shaken. Listen, we won't let just one enemy attack shake us. Stay alert. Now, strengthen our defenses on the sea. We can't allow him to keep launching these attacks. Separate the ships. Raza exclaimed, trying to boost morale and contain the damage caused by Minato's attacks. Minato looked to the side after leaving more than 12 Kumo ninjas dead to the north, before being hit directly by an enemy's punch. There was an explosion of smoke, and the Raikage himself, cloaked in his mantle, emerged from the clone smoke before landing on the deck of one of the ships, gazing in frustration at the turbulent sea caused by the Raisin Shuriken explosion that had gone off underwater before Minato appeared in the air to face more and more ninjas still recovering from the last Raisin Shuriken attack. Separate the ships as well, exclaimed the Raikage, who had the same idea as the others, in case Minato appeared again launching more attacks like the previous ones. That way, the damage would be smaller with the ships spread farther apart. Even so, all four fleets maintained their position ahead. Now that they were there, they couldn't retreat, so they placed several ninjas in the sea to protect the ships, where they had the advantage. All three fleets, except Kiri's, made efforts with some water and even Earth-style users helping with the defense, giving them a better chance in underwater combat. Meanwhile, explosions continued echoing everywhere, and the people of Yuzushin Obikure heard the sounds from afar, still with no ships appearing on the horizon. Minato's giving them a hard time, Databane. Kushina said excitedly, clenching her fist with a bright smile as she looked out at the sea from the top of one of the abandoned houses in the Uzumaki clan's village. There were no civilians or people unable to fight besides Yuzu's ninjas, as everyone else had been kept in hiding, waiting for the place to soon become a battlefield. At this rate, he'll defeat all four nations that face him, said Makoto, also smiling, her dark eyes fixed on the sea, waiting for the enemy to come. I don't think so, Makoto, Kushina replied, now looking at her with a more serious tone. Minato isn't omnipotent. He just launched 8 Raisin Shurikens in such a short time, Makoto. You know that must be exhausting, even with the enormous amount of chakra he has and with the help of Sage Mode. Still, he needs to use his mental focus each time he casts the jutsu, Kushina explained. But we can't let Minato do all the work. We're his companions, and the thousands of Uzumaki are also here to protect their land. We'll do our part, we can't leave everything to Minato, added the Uzumaki. Beautiful words, murmured Makoto, landing near them as she watched Suna approach, the blondes seeming to have heard their conversation. You're right. Minato can't do everything alone, that's why we're here, isn't it, said the brunette, and the two nodded in agreement. Where's Hanabi? Makoto asked. She's making the final preparations with the wind users. At that moment, they felt a distortion in space at the center of the village. Minato appeared. He quickly spoke with the clan leader, reporting what his clones had done and what they had seen so that the leadership would be informed. After speaking with the leader, he went over to where his girls were. "Hello, Minato's clone," Kushina said, looking at him, already knowing he wasn't her original Minato. "Hello, lovers of my original," said the clone with a smile. "Lovers? No one here is a lover except that Uchiha," Suna grumbled, huffing. "Well, I may not be the original, but I know his intentions. After all this chaos, when everything's over, you'll all marry him, won't you?" "So it won't be long," the clone shrugged. "I hope so," admitted Kushina, blushing, while Tsuna crossed her arms and Makoto touched her belly carrying Minato's first child. "Anyway," the clone continued, "I managed to reduce the enemy forces to 4/5, but I can't keep launching S-rank jutsus as frequently now as I did with the Raisin Shuriken. It won't be as efficient and will be even more exhausting. As long as they don't discover all the sea seals and the seals we placed on the stones ourselves, I'll keep sending clones to delay them. My original is still monitoring the situation from the sky, and I'll remain there until I have to act." "Minato doesn't need to do everything. All the forces are here to fight together, aren't we?" said Makoto. "I know, but my original wants to ease as much of the pressure as possible when they begin to approach the island." Minato's clone turned his attention forward, as the three women also looked ahead. The ships were beginning to appear one after another rapidly, forming lines. And it wasn't just there. In every direction they looked, all the Uzumaki to the north, south, east, and west could see the vessels approaching. All the enemy ninjas had hatred in their eyes and even greater fury for having lost so many comrades. The four nations advanced with the full strength of their fleets. They wanted revenge. After what Minato had done, none of them could accept losing their men without even managing to stop the culprit. "Be ready! All teams!" shouted Masaki Uzumaki in the center of the village, as several leaders began to approach him. "Well, I have to prepare the Uzumaki for the water jutsu," said Tsuna, leaving the area, while only Makoto, Kushina, and the clone remained. But the clone was already preparing to depart as well. "I'll be going then. The original will send messages through the clones if you need anything. Meanwhile, he's up there, watching everything from the sky," the clone said before disappearing. Meanwhile, the original Minato continued observing from the sky just as the clone had said. He could see the four fleets of ships drawing closer and closer to Yuzushiogakure. Chapter 318, The Red Eyes That Watch Beneath the Earth. Third-person POV. Land of Waterfalls, Year 42. Somewhere beneath the earth in the land of waterfalls, a scream echoed through the depths of the underground caves formed by the roots of trees. The scream was one of pain, of suffering, echoing through all those caverns while, in a specific place within that realm, there was a giant flower closed tight, with a petal about to bloom. It was a purple flower, unlike any other flora in the ninja world or beyond. From the flower, a tube made from the very wood of the plant extended, connected to a man sitting in front of it as if upon a throne. The man was elderly, marked by a long life in this world. More than that, he had surpassed the limits of the human body. He was in a state no body should normally withstand. He remained alive only thanks to that tube connected to his back, granting him the chance to survive under impossible conditions. He had remained alive for decades beyond what he should have, ever since his battle against Hashirama at the Valley of the End. He was a legend who had been manipulating the world from the shadows as best he could in recent years, hidden in that place. The old man stared at the ground, deep in thought, while his three-tomo Sharingan eyes seemed to gleam, ignoring the cries of pain coming from elsewhere within those tunnels. Those eyes were not his true eyes, but rather part of a vast collection of Sharingans he had gathered over the years. Taken from the Uchiha he had killed or captured since leaving the village, driven by his desire for revenge against the clan that turned its back on him when he begged them to abandon the village, realizing that path would not bring true peace, but greater wars instead. He possessed even more Sharingans now, having captured many Uchiha mysteriously during the Second Great Ninja War. His collection of Sharingans was kept in a chamber, all inside tubes filled with green liquid, preserving the eyes. He had more Sharingans than Danzo could ever dream of possessing. Seems like he's having trouble. "I hope he survives," the old man said, his voice deep and coarse with age, yet still firm as in his days of glory. "I hope so too, Madara-sama. He'll have to endure Soon, he'll be part of the perfect weapon for the fulfillment of your wishes and your will, said a two-tone Zetsu standing before Madara, ignoring the screams, as the dark and malevolent voice of the black half spoke this time. I'm counting on that, now and in the future. His eyes stared coldly at Zetsu. And how are things in Uzushiogakure? Has the attack already begun? Madara asked. The four nations have already started to get involved. The last time we checked, Madara-sama, he should be arriving there right at this moment. But no other Zetsu has returned yet to update us, the black Zetsu informed in the same grim tone. Anything new about Konoha's movements? He asked again. Konoha is still preparing to move. They're gathering a large number of ninjas, but they won't arrive in time at Uzushiogakure, Madara-sama. They won't be a problem, said the black Zetsu. It seems that the one who took that Sarutobi's place has more will to act than his predecessor. But there's nothing else to be done, they can't possibly arrive in time, as you yourself said, mocked Madara, still staring at Zetsu with a cold glint in his eyes. You're thinking about that boy, aren't you, said the black Zetsu in a dark tone. It seemed he didn't like the latest events in the ninja world either. The boy is a variable, and a threat, revealed Madara. Ah, we've certainly been keeping an eye on that ever since the Hokage himself handed the Uzumakis over to the other villages. Which turned out to be perfect for us, Madara-sama. Weakening the ninja world. The Uzumaki were certainly a nuisance when it came to sealing jutsus. Not to mention that they were almost a hidden village of their own, on par with the great nations. The funny thing was that Madara didn't even have to manipulate the Kage or the villages for that to happen. The ninja world itself showed its true colors when they handed the entire Uzumaki clan over to death in the name of peace. A false and fragile peace that would soon shatter. When Madara heard about it at the time, he couldn't help but let out a faint, muffled chuckle before finishing in a cold tone. Once again, this world proves how filthy it is. However, something happened. He was surprised when he discovered a certain movement through the Zetsus themselves in Konoha and sent them to investigate, infiltrating the village, something he used to do often. But this time was different, because they were all hunted down one by one. Later, he sent new Zetsus to find out why the first ones had disappeared. Then they discovered everything that had happened in Konoha. He learned about a boy named Minato Namikaze. A boy with no important surname, an orphan raised in an orphanage in the poorest parts of Konoha. But he had stood out in the war, and Madara himself had heard reports brought by the Zetsus, reports he had never paid much attention to. Certainly, the boy was seen as a genius, capable of fighting powerful opponents at Kage level, even at a young age. Madara never felt threatened by that boy or anyone else. He would never feel threatened when, in the end, he considered them all weak. As long as no new Hashirama appeared in the ninja world, nothing would deserve much attention. And he was making sure that no new ninja like his old rival would ever rise again, standing against the most powerful groups. Madara was surprised when he heard about the conversations the new Zetsus had gathered over the past few days about the village. The boy not only survived, when geniuses are born all the time and die just as easily, but also stood out. After all, the village itself could see them as threats, for he knew how the minds of those who hold power work. They want to keep it for themselves, without having to hand it to anyone else. And they could also be targeted by the villages for obvious reasons. Feeling more threatened, they would try everything to kill them. But the boy survived. Not only that, he even turned against his own village and against the Hokage's decision. An almost insubordinate act, notable and reminiscent, in a way, of Hashirama's personality. Despite his rival trying to talk, the boy was more about action from what we heard. Hashirama would not try to kill people in the trap set to kill the boy if he had been in his place. There was that plot in the Land of Wind, and the boy not only came out alive, but also killed hundreds of powerful enemies, showing a strength he hadn't revealed even in the Second Great Ninja War. The boy even killed the Kazekage, when no Kage died in the Second War. Madara mocked Minato, believing he was not a threat until then. Still, he couldn't help but feel a spark of doubt when he began to hear more about the boy. Madara already knew that the boy had fled the village as a deserter ninja to go to Uzushiogakure to help them. Do you really think he can handle all the united forces? Asked the white Zetsu, in an amusingly sarcastic tone, countering the other half. I don't know, but the boy can survive. He possesses a teleportation jutsu, not to mention he has the Kyuubi. They say she has some control over her chakra. If she's perfect, we'll have trouble, from what we heard in the village, replied the Black Zetsu. If she has control, yes, she's a threat. Maybe the Uzumaki aren't at such a disadvantage after all. Maybe that's what made Konoha start to act. They don't want to lose their Jinchuriki who fled. Madara, don't forget now, that boy is a threat to our plans. We have to find a way to kill him, said the Black Half, firmly. And we can also capture the Kyuubi, said the White Zetsu, excited. The boy is certainly a threat and must be eliminated, but the Kyuubi, perhaps not yet. Maybe we should kill his allies and let the beast be reborn, but we shouldn't capture her while the plan is still being built until the moment we start collecting the bijou for good. And how are we going to deal with the boy? He proved to be so powerful and was able to escape, right? Asked the White Zetsu. He can survive, yes. But we can take advantage of the end of Yuzushiobikure's fight against the nations. If he survives and is tired, we can use the chance to catch him, pondered Madara, thinking of sending several Zetsu from the small army he had been building over the years to spread them across the land of fire. Wherever he appears, he will be attacked. If he survives, we can send a massive army to Konoha as well. That would be better. If by some miracle he manages to survive the nation's attack, we catch him before Konoha arrives with reinforcements. Madara said while the Zetsus in front of him fell silent. I don't believe he can still sense us, said the White Zetsu, breaking the silence. No one should be able to sense them, but somehow he could see them moving beneath the earth. This boy was a threat, an anomaly. Yes. Madara's eyes gleamed with interest. Not only that, Madara. Did you hear the reports? They say he has a body of light. We've never heard of anything like that, commented the Black Zetsu. His body of light allows him to move at high speed, like a flash. Hundreds of powerful ninjas fell before him without being able to react. You know as much as I do, replied Madara to the Black Zetsu, narrowing his eyes at him. That creature had been created by him, it was his will, or so he thought. The ninja world is full of variables. It doesn't surprise me that a ninja with a strange ability has appeared in this era, but in the end, what matters is the plan. Minato Namikaze will just be another name recorded in history, declared Madara coldly. They fell silent. In any case, Madara continued. That Minato Namikaze is above Kage level, that's clear, Madara said. But I still believe he can't defeat all four together, the Black Zetsu completed. Yes, let's kill him, finish him off, exclaimed the White Zetsu. A new scream echoed from another part of the caverns. Madara stared into the darkness and then turned his gaze back to the Zetsus. Besides, you said he's with the Uchiha, didn't you? Madara asked, now with a tone of interest. Yes, Madara-sama, it seems he's engaged to her. From what I know, they were already living together after she was expelled from the clan, said the Black Zetsu. Looks like the clan has opened its borders. Madara clicked his tongue in disdain. The Uchiha bloodline had never left the clan before, with cousins marrying each other only to preserve the Sharingan within the family, but things seemed to be changing. But that didn't matter. The Uchiha clan was another that should be eliminated. Madara would do it in time or send someone to carry out his will in the future. He and the Zetsu wanted to eliminate as many powerful forces in the ninja world as could turn against him and his plan. The Senju clan had been reduced to a pathetic number. The Uchiha clan was still strong and had managed to weaken them somewhat in the Second Great War, but not enough. In any case, it was strange that a woman from his clan would marry this Minato. Anyway, didn't he take one of our pairs of Mangekyo Sharingan and destroy them? Maybe we can obtain a new pair of Mangekyo from that Uchiha. If we know how to take advantage of the love that this woman feels for him, it could make up for what he took from us. After all, he owes us a pair of Mangekyo, said Madara, his eyes turning toward the darkness. Perhaps we can use him now, along with the Zetsu. Minato Namikaze was the name Madara paid the most attention to at that moment. He hoped that if the four nations could not kill him, he himself would act. But Minato was a threat and had to be eliminated. Madara's gaze turned back. Beyond the strange flower that held his life, a statue stood back there, the statue that would make him collect all the bijou, or rather, the next heir he would place before returning to this world after dying. Chapter 319 Uzumaki's vs 4 Ninja Villages 03. Third Person POV. Uzushigakure, Year 42. While Madara awaited a new report, the Zetsus in the Land of Waterfalls were closely observing the first battles the village fleets were currently facing. They themselves were some of the visual witnesses. It was difficult to hide in the water, impossible, actually, but they could still use the ocean floor, allowing them to see what was happening. They saw explosions and attacks, their heads emerging between the rocks and seabed, realizing that the attacking forces at Uzushigakure were weakening with each passing moment thanks to the assault of a single person who was unstoppable for everyone. They quickly began transmitting what they were seeing to the other Zetsus located somewhere in the Land of Fire, far from the border due to the concentration of Konoha ninjas there. "This looks bad," one of them said. "It seems he's there fighting. We don't know if he can use his teleportation to start evacuating the Uzumaki clan. Konoha is planning something too. We have to warn Lord Madara," another replied. "Yes. We'll have to send the information. Some of us should do it, while the others stay here to keep watch," they said, talking among themselves before all diving back into the ground. While some returned to the sea, others ran toward the Land of Waterfalls. At the same time, in the trees along the coast of the Land of Fire, several ninjas wearing leaf headbands were alert by the shore, watching the sea through binoculars. Explosions appeared on the horizon. Minato was attacking the enemy fleet on that side with his Rasen shurikens. "Has it started already?" asked one of the ninjas from the reconnaissance team. "Seems like it, but we can't see anything from here, and we can't get close either," murmured a third. "Damn it, this isn't right. We should be fighting too." "I know. I thought we should fight as well. That's why I voted for us to fight," said his companion, while some lowered their heads around the group, clearly unwilling to give an opinion, as they had chosen to remain neutral during Konoha's vote. Minato Namikaze was a war hero. "The Hokage was wrong, it was obvious we had only one path," the first said. "But you know there was no way to tell that the third Hokage, in the end, was harming the village. Even you and I trusted him without suspecting anything, while our lives could have been thrown away just for threatening his position, even after serving Konoha for years," said a third with disgust, one who had voted against Konoha going to help the Uzumakis. "Then, if you really saw that, why did you come back to maintain peace? If you believe he was a threat, don't be a hypocrite," another ninja snarled. His companions fell silent after that, remaining alert to the sea, their sensors unable to reach what was happening out there, as it was far beyond their range, but they knew Minato must have been fighting at that very moment. "Ok, vocês estão discutindo AI," the team captain arrived, landing near them. "Commander, I'm just recalling how our comrades are a bit cowardly," said the ninja who was mocking the other, while the rest ground their teeth and glared. "Stop that," the captain said immediately. "Fighting among ourselves won't change what happened. We're here to follow orders from the new command." He spoke already knowing what they were saying. After all, this was common when Konoha's ninjas split into two factions. "I don't think it justifies staying here, doing nothing," one of them murmured. "But those are our orders," the captain said. "In any case, I just received a report. Konoha is raising a huge reinforcement force." This seemed to surprise everyone there. "Wait, and the village's decision?" one of them asked. "To hell with the village's decision," another snarled, knowing the Hokage had been cunning enough to even place civilians who knew nothing of war in the vote. "Well, that's the decision of the new council. Tsukumo-sama is acting as the village leader. Although he should be announced as the new Hokage, he doesn't consider himself as such. But he uses the role, and the new council decided." Unsurprisingly, the new council still consisted of the leader of the Uchiha clan, the leader of the Senju clan, Nawaki Senju, and the leader of the Nara, with Tsukumo wearing the Hokage's hat. The village had already pushed aside all the old elders who no longer made decisions. Even their clans were viewed with disdain by the rest of Konoha's forces. No one seemed to like them anymore. That led the council to make a decision that, although unpopular, still gathered a large group of ninjas willing to help the Uzumakis, sending them to the border to receive and rescue survivors, preventing any other enemy force from entering the Land of Fire. The village was troubled by the fact that Minato had become a rebel and taken the Ninetales Jinchuriki. Even so, many seemed secretly in favor of Minato. Meanwhile, the man they spoke of, Minato Namikaze himself, was in the sky, watching the ships drawing ever closer to Uzushiogakure. "It's almost time," Minato murmured as he watched the movements. Quickly, several Uzumakis began to appear on the island's shores, even the ships could see them at that moment. While trying to deal with the last kunai and Raijin seals that Minato had placed in the sea and on the enemy fleet itself, and while he was fighting hand-to-hand against Kumo ninjas to the north, Minato encountered an interesting opponent, none other than the future 4th Raikage. He looked young, though older than Minato, and he was furious, with small lightning sparks coursing over his body. "Oh, you seem interesting. You must be the son of the 3rd Raikage," said Minato's clone, stopping in the middle of the deck after kicking several ninjas who had tried to attack him. "You will pay for everything you've been doing, Minato Namikaze." Snarled. "Come, show me your speed," Minato taunted. This made the young man even angrier. Remembering his adult self very well, he surged forward at high speed. Not comparable to his father's, since he was still mastering the technique, but much faster than any other ninja Minato had faced since the start of the assault, with the exception of the Kages themselves. Minato barely dodged when I launched an attack aimed at his head. The punch, wrapped in lightning, whizzed by, and Minato quickly avoided another blow the young man was already preparing. "You're good. You're good at facing one of my clones," Minato said, while the youth grew angrier still, launching multiple attacks that he dodged one by one. Even without using the Raijin, his clones could handle that for a while. Several Kumo ninjas also began to gather around them, trying to hit him, casting lightning element jutsu and barrages of kunai, forcing Minato to split his attention. That was enough for A to hit him at one point, making Minato raise both hands to block the impact. He slid for 5 meters, but soon exposed a grin as he opened his arms. Even being a clone, he had withstood the blow. A gritted his teeth even more. But before Minato could taunt again, he was grabbed by the neck, this time by an older and far more powerful version of his father, the 3rd Raikage himself. His body emanated intense lightning, sparking like a living storm. "You're a pain in the neck, brat," the Raikage said angrily. "I hope you're not still resentful about our last fight." "That scar suited you well, Raikage," Minato's clone said with a smile, even as his neck was pressed. The Raikage fell silent for a moment, furious but also curious. He looked at Minato's scratched headband, he had noticed it since he first saw him. "Have you become a deserter from the village? I heard the Hokage ordered your death," he said, while Minato was already surrounded. Not that he could escape the Raikage at that moment. His chakra reserves were extremely low, serving only to deceive the enemy and take down part of the opposing forces. "You seem surprised by that. Why would I fear Konoha's feelings? I severed ties with the village. I'm here protecting the Uzumakis alone. You could even call me a hero, the man who fled the village to fight for what is right and help those in need," Minato said in a dramatic tone. "However, I doubt you think that way. In the end, I will not let you destroy Uzushiogakure. Mark my words, Raikage, the only villages that will come out weakened from this will be 4 of the 5 great elemental nations. I'm not as naive as the Hokage and the late Danzo were. I know you would launch a 3rd Great War as soon as Konoha was weakened. You would take advantage of your forces already prepared to fight against Uzushiogakure and then invade the Land of Fire," Minato taunted. The Raikage stared at him in silence for a few seconds before pressing Minato's neck hard, making the clone explode into smoke. "Where is this clone coming from? Didn't you say you removed all the seals from the sea?" the Raikage barked at his men. "Raikage-sama, we swear we checked the entire area." "There shouldn't be any more seals," one of his subordinates said, frightened. The Raikage clicked his tongue and looked down, as if he could see through the deck. His eyes widened when he noticed a seal glowing beneath the ship's hull. Minato had begun spreading seals there to move more quickly between the ships, confusing the enemies and forcing them to desperately search for traps in the sea. "Get off this ship," was the only sensible thing he said before raising his fist and launching a punch, with most still unprepared. Screams echoed as the ship exploded from a single blow, several ninjas being hurled off the deck as it was destroyed. The wreckage moved to another ship as if nothing had happened, crossed his arms and stared at the enemy island, trying to sense Minato's presence once more. He would deal with that clone himself before there were more losses. "Look, the Uzumakis are finally appearing," one of the ninjas said, watching the island through a spyglass. From afar they could see multiple spots of red hair beginning to emerge. "So they didn't flee," the wreckage commented. To the east, in front of Kiri. Minato finished all his seals before exhaling and beginning to spit fire with force, causing even the water to boil and turn into steam, which blasted toward 3 ships. Quickly, the enemies threw up walls of water to protect themselves from the flames. The flames collided with the water and the steam covered the area. It seemed powerful, but against several water users the offensive ended up giving way, and the ship became engulfed in clouds of steam. Minato was above them the next moment, using that distraction to deliver kicks to an enemy's neck and leap to the next, stealing his sword. He cut quickly, taking advantage of the steam as cover. However, he barely had time to take down a fifth of the opponents when someone powerful appeared, mastering the very mist. "Do you really think you can use the mist against us, Minato Namikaze?" "You're a fool," said a mist swordsman. "I heard you took one of ours. I hope you didn't kill them. Otherwise, we'll kill everyone you know in revenge." Minato fought him using the same sword as before. If he weren't a clone, it could have been an interesting fight, but the outcome soon became clear to those watching, as Minato unleashed several strikes that cut through parts of the ships, yet the opposing ninja evaded each one using the mist itself, and Minato soon began to feel his chakra drain. He was struck shortly thereafter. "Damn it! I wanted to see the original, to see your blood," the enemy snarled, licking his tongue like a maniac. "Stay alert. Don't let any clones keep weakening our numbers," ordered the Kazekage, as they withdrew and spread out. Everyone's eyes then turned to another point. Several Uzumakis were beginning to appear along the coast. Minato had once again sent many clones into the sky, which began to disappear one by one, activating the last teleportation seals he had placed on the ships. At the same time, his eyes fell upon the island. A smile spread across Minato's face as he saw that now all the Uzumakis from the first group were moving toward each corner of the island. All of them moved their hands quickly, combining seals to perform a jutsu together. Chapter 320 Uzumakis vs 4 Ninja Villages 04. Third-person POV. Uzushiogakyure, Year 42. Quickly, hundreds of hands began to move at high speed. At the front of the Uzumakis stood Suna, leading them, while her original body was positioned to the east to channel more chakra there. She had sent a clone to each of the 4 corners of Uzushiogakyure so they could cast the jutsu simultaneously. Water style, Tsunami Jutsu. The moment she completed the seal along with all the Uzumakis behind her, they shouted together. Chakra began to explode, and the distant fleets quickly sensed something was wrong. The seawater suddenly started being pulled directly toward the coast. "They're preparing a large-scale jutsu," complained a sensor, eyes closed in a lotus position, his hand forming a seal to help him extend his sensory range. Even from outside the range, he could feel that the jutsu was consuming an enormous amount of chakra, while the chakra of the Uzumakis, along with Tsunade's, began to concentrate at the front of the island, rapidly stirring the sea. The ships themselves started to be pulled even further in the same direction they were already heading. "Prepare yourselves, everyone," exclaimed the Mizukage. The next moment, the sea began to rise, lifting up as it sucked in more and more water from the middle of the ocean. It started to surge upward rapidly, like one of the secret jutsus Tobirama had created. One considered forbidden, since even the second Hokage avoided using it due to the massive amount of chakra required to perform it and the immense, uncontrollable power it unleashed. But here, with several Uzumakis gathered, they not only had the required chakra but also didn't care about the destruction they might cause to the enemy fleet. In fact, they hoped to cause as much devastation as possible. The wave kept growing, casting a shadow directly over Uzushiogakyure. In every corner of the island, the sight was the same, the wave towering more than 100 meters high, a colossal mass of water churning, generating a cutting wind in every direction, accompanied by a deafening roar. Minato couldn't help but whistle in the sky, watching the shadows that the 4 corners of the island were projecting as they rose. The eyes of all the enemy ninjas who witnessed it widened slowly, their eyeballs reflecting the massive wave advancing with full force. Its range is enormous. She intends to crush us, shouted an IWA ninja. Focus. We can't be taken down by that wave. Use everything you've got to defend yourselves. Rashi and Han, I'm leaving the rest to you, that such a kid shouted, moving his arm forward. He was already pointing toward the tsunami, which began to surge toward them, while the wind pushed his hair and clothes back. There was no escaping it now. Not to mention, it was impossible to create a stone barrier. The specialty of the IWA ninjas, they're in the middle of the sea, since they would have to bring it up from the ocean floor to the surface. Creating it only above the water would make it easily pushed back, with no support underneath. I'll go first, said Inoki, as he simply flew straight toward the tsunami. All the IWA ninjas nodded. When they prepared for battle, they knew their role was to protect others, even in the face of danger. The least they could do was survive with everything they had. A giant beast emerged in the north as the Two Tails was released, transforming into a blue-flamed cat with two tails before it began to open its mouth and form a Baijidama. Minato narrowed his eyes as he saw that Two Tails Jinchuriki once again. He grabbed a kunai and threw it between the Kumo and IWA fleets. He made another clone and had it disappear, infusing it with a large amount of chakra. Meanwhile, to the south, the Sand Ninjas were in the worst situation. They looked on in fear at the enormous wave coming toward them with full force. The sea itself pushed their ships forward, they were in a situation from which there was no escape. Damn it, muttered Raza, frustrated because he couldn't even use his own one tail there yet. The Kiri ninjas were the first to act. As the tsunami advanced, thousands of water-style users quickly responded with several hand seals, creating numerous giant water barriers. The wave struck the first, making everything tremble with the impact, then advanced to the next, and then the next. After almost 5 barriers, the wave finally began to lose strength. By the third, it met enough resistance, it started to collapse, with water crashing down everywhere and spreading across the area. We managed to survive, said the Mizukage, satisfied that his men had managed to withstand the enemy's attack. As he looked north and south, he also noticed that the sea there was rising in waves and could see distant explosions, indicating that the Uzumakis had prepared well against them. A roar came from the north, and he raised an eyebrow, knowing that could only mean one thing, a bijou. So that's how Kumo was going to act. The Mizukage murmured, while in the north, the Baijidama was finally completed and fired toward the tsunami. The intention wasn't just to destroy the wave, but also to strike Uzushio-Bakure an attack comparable to an atomic bomb. Kumo was the first to act. However, when the Baijidama fired from the Two Tails' mouth was about to hit the wave, it suddenly stopped. Several circles inscribed with Fuinjutsu appeared around it and began to pull it into some kind of portal until the sphere was completely absorbed and disappeared. What, that jutsu? The Two Tails user thought, startled, realizing that only one person could have done that after all, it was a sight he himself had seen in the land of sound. The Reikage also narrowed his eyes, that could only mean one thing. He looked around sharply, quickly searching for any kunai. If Minato sent that Baijidama back at them, they'd be doomed, without even a moment to react. While the Reikage was worrying about a kunai that Minato might use to return the Baijidama toward them, the wave continued to advance, and on top of it was Minato's clone, surfing on the crest, about to complete the hand seals and redirect the Baijidama elsewhere. It was summoned through the kunai Minato had thrown earlier and shot directly toward the IWA fleet. Meanwhile, in the west, Inoki continued to unleash his dust-release jutsu, while the white lightning struck directly at the wave, slicing through it to lessen its impact and trying to split it into 2 parts. The Uzumakis behind the wave were surprised to see a white lightning slash opening a path through it and dividing it, as it began to lose part of its strength. But there were still other sections of the wave relentlessly advancing toward the fleets. However, the Jinchurikis were already prepared, their bodies enveloped in red chakra and readying lava-style jutsus. Rashi, the Four Tails Jinchuriki, waited. When one of the sections of the wave came close enough, he released a massive amount of lava upon it, using the Bijou's chakra to unleash as much power as necessary to stop the tsunami. At the same time, the other Jinchuriki Han, the Five Tails host, performed several seals and finally slammed both hands directly into the water, activating a jutsu of increased weight. The sea area before him began to sink with tremendous force, losing altitude and crashing violently into the ocean. It looked like a gravity technique, but in reality, it increased the weight of a specific point. On the other side, the lava jutsu also managed to destroy part of the wave, rapidly evaporating the water. The Biju's chakra made the heat rise to an absurd level, turning everything into steam as the Uzumaki's jutsu dissipated. Anoki was satisfied to see his ninjas had managed to contain the first crisis. His gaze, however, fell arrogantly upon the Uzumakis at the tip of the island. Among them, he noticed a blonde woman, and if he had to guess, that description resembled Tsunade, one of the legendary Sannin. Or perhaps someone too young to be her, maybe her daughter? She couldn't be an ordinary kunoichi, after all, she stood among the Uzumakis. He was about to say something and launch an attack when he felt something strange. His sensors, and everyone else's on the fleet, screamed in alarm. But it was already too late. Another Baijidama came out of nowhere, from the north, directly toward part of the fleet. Had it not been for Rashi appearing in front of the attack, transformed into his second form, cloaked in chakra, to try to stop it, the strike would have annihilated them. In the end, he managed to deflect the attack's trajectory, and the impact generated a colossal explosion, spreading force and destruction in all directions, even catching part of the IWA fleet. "Who did that?" roared that Tsuchikage, stunned. A murmur came from the north. It could only have come from Kumo. Could Kumo have betrayed them? That was the impression everyone got, since the only Biju belonged to them. Anoki was in shock, shouting as he watched more of his fleet's power being destroyed like that. Luckily, Rashi had managed to divert the Baijidama so it wouldn't hit the main front, otherwise, the damage would have been far greater. Regardless, the explosion erupted, making everyone in the region feel the impact, both those in the midst of battle and those watching from afar. Meanwhile, in the south, Raza was also struggling to stop the massive wave and had no choice but to use a large amount of chakra to try to halt it. He raised his hands and unleashed all the gold dust he had brought with him, obscuring the view of the horizon ahead. Quickly, he moved his hands, and an enormous mass of sand began to rise. Even though he didn't have all the sand he needed, he could still use chakra to multiply it, and soon the mass grew large enough to reach 100 meters in height. He was the only one capable of controlling such a thing without any foundation, while the water crashed violently against the sand. In the next moment, the wave collided fiercely with the golden barrier. Raza gritted his teeth, exerting immense effort to keep the water from reaching his fleet. The struggle continued for a while until the force of the tsunami began to wane, losing energy and retreating, falling back into the sea and leaving everything in turmoil, with ships rocking from side to side. It was at that moment that the explosion occurred on the western side. The impact illuminated the sea ahead, followed by intense tremors and a deafening sound. "What's happening over there? Was that launched from Uzushigokure?" asked one of the commanders, while Raza looked exhausted, trying to regain his composure quickly. Something was happening. That attack had already forced the Kagez out of the comfort of their positions even after taking so many hits from Minato and his clones, before they could even uncover all the Horatian seals scattered across the ocean. What else could Uzushigokure be waiting to unleash upon them before they even reached the island? That wraps up this part of What If Transmigrated as Minato Namikaze. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.